Welcome everyone to this special YRO meeting tonight. We have with us Hunter Tower, who is the Pennsylvania director for the Freedom Foundation, also a former executive director of Lancaster County GOP in Pennsylvania. So something to note here is this county was run so well that it does hold a very powerful and influential kind of place for the state GOP. Presidential candidates often have to go through this county to run successful races in Pennsylvania. So there's a lot of pull there, especially in a place there that is, a lot of union influence as well as, just labor in general. So you have to kind of be able to sway the demographic there effectively. So that's huge. So we really want to welcome him here, and we look forward to picking your brain, Hunter, and seeing if there's some ways that we can effectively influence our state as well. We do have that kind of a lot of that similar demographic here, just sort of disproportionately kind of chopped up at this point a little bit, but Stephen and I were chatting earlier, and there's always that ability to make that influence kind of different and change, especially in times like these where, workers and small business owners and things are struggling quite mightily. So again, we want to thank you so much for being here, and we will go ahead and get the interview started right now. So the first question we have here will be, how did you get involved in politics? Some ways that, earlier in your career, was it later in life? How did that all kind of pan out for you?
Yeah, well, first, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the invite. And so my family's been involved in politics since the William McKinley administration. One of my relatives was the ambassador under William McKinley, and then when he was assassinated, then became ambassador under Teddy Roosevelt. And he was Austria-Hungary, Russia, then ultimately Germany. And so that kind of got our family started. And it was actually, they are from Pennsylvania, or they immigrated to Pennsylvania through that time. And there's actually a Tower City, Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half north of me, named after them, because they were such, influential people back in the, turn of the century industrial age. And then from there, my cousin was a U.S. Senator from Texas for 24 years. He was George H.W. Bush's first nominee for Secretary of Defense. His name was John Tower. He was influential in the kind of the Armed Services Committee. He was the chairman of that. If you ever at the U.S. Capitol, his pictures all over the walls because he's a stalwart for conservatism. And that's kind of where my roots come from. And so my father was Richard Nixon's aide at the 72 RNC and down in Tampa with Alexander Haig's son, worked with the Reagan administration, then started his own consulting lobbying firm in DC, right next to the White House, 1700 Pennsylvania Avenue. So I was kind of born into this, whether I liked it or not. I was never really it's always been in the back of my mind to get in the political sphere, whether one way or another. But my main focus growing up was basketball. That was my number one thing. I had a college scholarship to go play ball, but just I gravitated slowly towards this. And after a few colleges and settled outside the Philadelphia area and met my wife there, started getting involved with college Republicans, and then from there worked for the state party, and helped one of my buddies up in Connecticut run for state rep, and we beat the Democrat Party that had an 18-year. He wasn't incumbent, but they held that same seat for 18 years. So I've kind of seen it all over. I'm from the Baltimore area. Lived in Maryland. Lived in Texas. Went to school up in the Boston area, and obviously I live now here in Pennsylvania. So I've gotten kind of a different take on way of life and different regions of the country. So it's been pretty influential in how I approach things. And then I've kind of one thing led to another, and then after I was working in college Republicans, and then worked for at the time the incumbent governor of Pennsylvania. I was working on his campaign, and he got his butt kicked pretty bad. He was the only incumbent Republican governor to lose re-election in 2014. It's pretty ugly, but after that, I started a Lancaster County Republican committee hired me to be their executive director, and from there, things just kind of took off, and we, basically, I was trying to tally this before I came on here, but from the hundreds and hundreds of races we did, from your local school boards all the way up to your state rep, state senator, your congressman, even helping out with our gubernatorial races and our statewide races that we do, that we have a pretty influential hand on. I mean, we run, I want to say, close to 90% of our races. So it was pretty impressive run. And I mean, I don't like to brag. I don't really like talking about myself. I like, we do it as a team, and that's pretty much how we won, and we're really successful.
That's fantastic. And just to note, before I move on, if there are questions that we can add after the interview is over, please throw those in the chat, and we'll have Kurt get to those once we're all said and done. So it sounds like, yeah, you've kind of been up and down the East Coast and connected with the GOP in a lot of different senses. So that kind of ties into the next question. What did the Lancaster GOP look like before you joined? Because I mean, a lot of us now here in Oregon are seeing kind of the state of of just the GOP and conservatism in general here in our state, looking to the future. Kind of seeing, in our own minds what we could kind of hope it could turn into, with our influence, and especially as young Republicans. So maybe you could touch on a little bit of what, just the general state of the GOP was before you joined in Lancaster County, and then maybe even, in the other places you've lived and been.
Yes, so that's a good question. So the Lancaster Party has always been pretty strong. They're pretty much been a stalwart of conservatism, and it's just south of Harrisburg, which is our state capital. They are, or maybe just southeast of it, but they're pretty much have always been known. Like, if you want to win statewide, you go to Lancaster County. I mean, there's a couple other pockets of the state, but I mean, that's a pretty substantial part of your base, where what we kind of look at it is, we call it the big T. So you have, Philadelphia in one corner, you have Pittsburgh in another, and you kind of have your big T of the rest of your states and your counties. But in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh have so much of the population, you need, really big amounts of numbers to offset those votes if you're running statewide, especially. So people always look to Lancaster County to really offset those votes, which happened in 2016, and was able to put President Trump over the edge there. But so I mean, when I came into it, actually one of my buddies was the executive director before me, and then he went on to work for a state senator, but he left it in really good hands. And honestly, like, I like to say I did a lot, but I mean, really, I just kind of, went with the motions and did as best I could. I kind of just let our candidates run as best they could. We kind of stayed out of the way. We were there as a helping hand, really, to provide any resources to, we worked with we had a senior coalition of, we had a bunch of senior homes, 55 plus homes in our county. We worked with them. We had one of the guys was kind of their head leader. Then he had like kind of deputies all around. God rest his soul, he just passed away this year. Frank was a great guy, but so he was kind of like my go-to guy for, the 55 plus community. Then we had our young Republicans. They were really pretty great with knocking doors and, really getting out there in the grassroots section. So worked with them hand in hand. We had our women's Republican group. They always had their monthly things and always try to, pump up, whatever, state rep or, school board candidate or whatever race was really hot at the time. So I mean, we had a lot of rolling factions that we all seemed to really mesh and get along well together. And I think that's one of the big things is teamwork. And, we really look at this thing of kind of the Big Ten, and we always saw the Democrats, even in other states that I've been in. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're as far left as Bernie Sanders, or if you're kind of middle of the road Democrat like your Jim Webb from Virginia, who pretty much would be a Republican anywhere else. But I mean, for some reason they all voted together. But with Republicans, it didn't matter. You could have a Second Amendment guy, but he was in a liberal area, so he would vote with his constituents. Or it was just really weird how it always worked out. But in Lancaster County, we stuck together like glue, and I think that was the big part of we kind of just bucked the system and just said this is what we are. This is like these are our values, and we all stuck together. So I think that's why just running it like a well-oiled machine and just kind of I think the best way to look at it is basically just getting out of the way and, letting the voters decide. And I mean, all we really did was put forth our ideals, which was, limited government, individual liberty, strong defense, always protect the Second Amendment, pro-life, et cetera. So, kind of we just threw that in the face and got out of the way and, let the voters decide. And obviously they overwhelmingly voted our way the majority of the time. So I think that's the big thing. People like to convolute politics a lot. And really, especially when you get into office and run for office. And I think the best way is just, put your mission out there, put what your values are, and just get the hell out of the way and just let people decide.
Yeah, it just seems like just a lot of natural momentum that was just facilitated kind of in an effective way and so would you say like that was kind of what you saw as your main role as executive director, is just kind of facilitating that unity and kind of giving people sort of a voice and allowing your power to then facilitate their power to kind of sort of unify in a way?
Yeah, I mean that's definitely part of it. I mean that's one of the roles is the ED. You're basically you have a chairman who you answer to, who's elected by your committee, as I'm sure you guys do as well in your counties and state as well. But the ED is the day-to-day guy. He's the him or her, whoever it may be. I mean they're really the ones that see the day in, day out and really interact with the elected officials, the public, et cetera. And I mean, you're in charge of everything. I mean, you're in charge of part of fundraising, making sure your financial statements are up to date. I mean, you're in charge of, I was basically, in charge of the building too. And we had our own office space, and it was just like kind of an end all be all. I mean, I was still, you're in charge of the campaign finance stuff. And it's a pretty heavy burden on someone in, their early 20s if they get, thrown the keys to the operation to say, hey, don't mess up, have fun. And there wasn't really a blueprint on what to do. So, yeah, I mean, there's been past executive directors of our county that have gotten in some hairy situations, but I mean, kind of as you alluded to, as long as you do the right thing, as long as you're, trying to stay true to your mission of, conservatism and, the Republican mission and just honestly, like, kind of what we all believe in, individual liberty and everything like that. As long as you're with it, and just like how I do at the Freedom Foundation, as long as you try to do the best thing you can every day, and you're not doing anything stupid, it usually tends to work out in your favor.
That's fantastic. One of the things I think we noticed here that we've all kind of touched on is certain fissures within the Republican Party. There's so many different groups that are active here in Oregon for whatever reason, may be a pro-life group, a pro-Second Amendment group, just general libertarian kind of groups, pro-freedom, so on and so forth. But kind of getting that unity sort of from one side of the state to the next. I always feel like if we could somehow just run down the list on the RNC website and like put out a mass text, and just kind of get everybody to kind of chime in a little bit. There's always certain things that kind of separate different groups within the group for whatever reason. Is there anything in that respect that you could possibly touch on to just maybe help us promote getting Republicans, conservatives, libertarians, maybe even moderate Democrats for that matter, to sort of, find a way to, obviously kind of sounds cliche, but put aside their differences and sort of, because it seems like there's those random fissures that kind of separate things. So maybe you could touch on that.
That's a great point. So kind of what I did when I was with the GOP was, we would try to find, because we had different factions, and it kind of alluded to kind of what area you lived in, and I'm sure that might be the same way out there as well. And I know I'm on the other side of the country. I'm just trying to relate to Oregon as much as possible. But so basically, what I did, and what we try to do is try to pinpoint whether it would be a prominent business person, a prominent, maybe somebody who's tried to run for office a couple times there, even if it's local stuff, or, someone that's come to us, which happened a couple times. And if they were, and especially in an area where there would maybe more of a minority presence, whether Hispanic, whether Puerto Rican, what have you, or If we were kind of in more of a, purple or bluish territory for, some municipality that maybe we lost a year or two prior, I mean, we would try and really talk to people on the ground, because what we've realized, and I've realized this too, running my own campaigns, is, if you're not really from the area, or if you're not kind of a homegrown kid, they don't care about you. And I mean, we saw it here. I mean, I was on the ticket. I ran for local office a couple of years ago, spent a bunch of money, my own money too. And it was for a part-time gig that paid like $1,200 a year. But I mean, I was just trying to do it for the right reasons and run on good government, lower taxes and so forth. And at that time, we had our two county commissioners. I don't know how your county structures are set up there, but I mean, some of the counties here in Pennsylvania, we have had county executives, we have county commissioners and so forth. But so we have a 3-board county commissioner where I live. And it's called Chester County where I live. It's actually just the neighbor of Lancaster County. And we had a woman and a African American as our two candidates, because usually what it is the minority party gets one and the majority party gets two. And so what I've realized is, and we lost, and the woman won, the African American candidate lost, and they were both incumbents. And I mean, that was up and down the ticket. I mean, we had women running, we had minorities running on our side, and it didn't matter if you're not from there, if you're not, hometown name, if you're not, it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter what your creed is, doesn't matter anything. If they don't know you, and if they don't know of you, and if you haven't been around for a long time, they could care less about you. So, I mean, that's what I saw from Lancaster too. I mean, that was one of the questions I got when I got hired. It's like, where are you from? And I had to kind of explain to people, I'm kind of all over, my family's been crazy, but they're like, most people there were, 7th, 8th generation Lancaster County. And it's like, well, I don't have that heritage. So, but I mean, people look at you differently if you don't say certain towns right, or if you don't have the right dialect or what have you. So, I mean, that's the kind of things we pinpointed, because there's, Lancaster City, which is the county seat of Lancaster. We try to highlight a lot of Hispanic, African American, women especially too. I mean, we had a woman run for mayor there. Unfortunately, she lost, but I mean, it's just those types of things we try and pinpoint to, really, relate to the community. Because, I mean, if you just have some guy from, next county over, and it's Joe Smith, and everyone's like, who the hell is Joe Smith? He's not going to win. He's going to get his butt kicked. So it's really trying to like cultivate those people, really go into communities and find those people that, one, will want to run, because that's one of the biggest issues, but two, finding people that actually people respect, because those are the people that are the neighbors, the community, the town's really going to get behind and support, regardless if, they don't have the, greatest fundraising or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think there's a couple of prospects like that. We have, a lot of movements sort of, obviously small. There's one in particular kind of coming out of the lockdown, the shutdowns and stuff, small business. There's an individual that, is kind of possibly could be cultivated in that way. So yeah, that's definitely a great point. And I think hopefully that'll be more of a trend, as people just start to get more, kind of, desperate in a way. Unfortunately, I think sometimes desperation sort of, in places like these where you don't see people just running to be elected for things necessarily, that's definitely, trying to cultivate that homegrown personality from here. Because I mean, our Portland's mayor is definitely not homegrown, but seems to be a pretty solid fixture for whoever's interested is, you know what I mean? But yeah, that's excellent. I guess that's touching on that question. A good kind of follow up would be, how do you get people to get motivated? I mean, what things have you done or have you seen be effective as far as getting people to not only join politics but GOP politics? I mean, how do you? And I think one other thing too, kind of to add on that, is the culturally. I mean, it's in Oregon, I don't know about in Pennsylvania, but it's uncool to be right wing in a lot of the obviously I think that's not just here, but in a lot of the country and a lot of the world for that matter. But I guess, how do you make it look cool?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but um, I mean, one thing, obviously, it's just the grassroots. It's door knocking. It's, having events. It's trying to meet people. It's kind of getting out of your comfort zone and, you know, going to those events that, you're going to be the minority at, and whether it's in, a city or town that's, not really friendly to you, and just kind of having those tough conversations. That's one way to kind of look out, because, well, I mean, we've done that a few times during my time in Lancaster, and we actually, Lancaster City, as I keep referring to, because that's basically our county seat. There's a lot of population there, and that turned blue pretty quickly. It's kind of like the Lancaster is like mini Philadelphia, I guess you could say, and it's very hipster and all. That's just like Portland, and it kind of has that vibe. But I mean, they have great restaurants and so forth, and really good people there. But it did go completely blue the last few cycles, so. It's basically just, us, what we did was, we'd go to those local community events, we'd go to the parade, we set up our tents, we, have literature there, and, you'd always have those one or two people kind of giving you a side eye and just kind of walk up like, hey, I'm with you guys. And it's like, all right. And then that conversation kind of blossoms into something else. And that's kind of how we did it. We just went in kind of areas where we neglected, and we went, set up shop and just had people try to cultivate, and get people on board to even be on our committee, because the committee's pretty influential as well. I mean, we hold Lancaster particularly, they hold an endorsement convention every year, and it's pretty much considered like a golden ticket. Once you get the committee's endorsement, you're pretty much guaranteed to win your general election, regardless of who your opponent is. And sometimes you don't even get an opponent, because once you get it, the Democrats kind of back off. But that's the power structure, because we've done, the Lancaster's done such good government, and kept taxes low, and that's why there's a lot of people fleeing right now from Philadelphia to Lancaster, even skipping over my county, because they're just like, hell no, we're not staying there, because you guys went left too. So they even go one over, even though Lancaster might be a lot more rural than they're used to, but they want that limited government, they want those low taxes, they want more bang for their buck, especially when it comes to real estate. So it's kind of a simple answer, even though, people like to put a lot of fluff on it, but that's pretty much how we did it. And, there are some areas at times, we would neglect, and, we could see the losses come, whether it's your local school board or a city council race or whatever it may be, or a borough race. And, we had to go back into that community and be like, what's going on? How can we help? Who can we like identify with, and that's kind of how we just did it, and we just try to cut our losses as little as possible. So and it worked very well. And they're still thriving even after I left. So I'm happy that's continuing. But it's pretty much the walls are closing. The walls are closing in, because the left keeps pushing over. But thankfully there's such a good structure there, and foundation, where they're still staving off a lot of that kind of leftism that's trying to proliferate over that way.
Yeah, so that's I mean, it sounds like kind of a good base is in place. That's sort of holding strong there. So do you see that lasting for? I mean, what would be like the forward direction and kind of combating that sort of ever present kind of nudge from one side to the next?
Right. So I mean, kind of when you win so much, people get tired. So, and I know it's a little rare on Oregon, but I've seen this in other areas too. It's, you have a lot of infighting now, because the right Republicans not winning or so forth. And I get that. I mean, like I said, before we started recording, I mean, there was just a bill passed of, basically people being able to take their dollars elsewhere if they don't agree with their parents, especially if they don't agree with the COVID policy going on in schools. And 18 Republicans voted against it. So it failed. It actually failed by 11 votes. And that was yesterday in our state legislature. And I mean, my state rep voted for it. And he's a retired colonel and Marine staunch guy. I knocked doors for him. I voted for him. I'm the committee man for my area. I've really put my neck out for him to my neighbors and so forth, and kind of stabbed us in the back. But that just kind of goes to show, like, you can have these great Republicans and, at face value, but when push comes to shove, there's a lot of these special interest groups that really try and come in and, buy out people, especially the unions. And that's kind of where, this is kind of a side, kind of a sidestep to the conversation, but that's kind of where the Freedom Foundation comes in, because, we kind of circumvent this whole legislative. And I know you have Aubrianne and Dimitri involved and others too, but, what if the Freedom Foundation wasn't around there? I mean, the unions would just go crazy, because there are other good, nonprofits and think tanks and so forth. But I was actually a victim of it. The unions, when I ran 2 years ago, the unions from out of state in Wilmington, Delaware, Joe Biden's hometown, dumped money into my opponent's race, because what they've realized is they have New York, they have, these strongholds like Portland, Seattle, they have New Jersey, all the states around Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware. So they have everything basically from local, state, federal. So what they do is they try and infiltrate, pretty good battleground states, or, other areas or other counties where they haven't mastered yet, especially maybe rural areas where you guys are that might be a little bit more deeper red than they would like. So what they do is they just dump their resources in, because they already have their base ready to go to vote for their guys. So I was a victim of it, and I got outspent. I put in a bunch of my own money. And so, basically in 1/3 of all donations or contributions across the country are union money, and it's all taxpayer money. So until we basically kind of remove that influence, we're just going to keep seeing it. And, I've always been a big tent guy. It doesn't matter if, you're kind of middle of the road or, far right, but, we can't even have that discussion until we really remove that influence from the conversation, because you're going to keep getting these guys that, like I said, my own state rep, he's a stalwart conservative, got bought out. And it's just, it doesn't matter what kind of resume they have or what have you. So, we had a great U.S. Senator. He's retiring now. His name's Pat Toomey. And a lot of people call him a rhino because, he voted a lot against, I'm a big gun guy, and he voted a lot against a lot of these Second Amendment things, because he's been on a lot of gun violence groups that have, contributed to his campaign. So, that's pissed off a lot of his base. And, but at the same time, a huge, like these infrastructure bills that are coming up in Congress, and, these trillions of dollars they want to blow through, like he's voting against it because he is a fiscal conservative. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. But again, like if you don't have these special interest groups, especially these unions, if you don't remove that influence, you can't really have an honest conversation with people. So, it's a long game, but we're trying our best we can, and we're making pretty good gains out here in Pennsylvania. And I know you guys, the Freedom Foundation team out in Oregon has been kicking butt too, and I'm proud of their success too. But yeah, it's things like that really tick me off, because we were 11 votes away from having this bill passed yesterday, and it's like, what the hell? So yeah, it just really bothers me. And that just proliferates through local races too. And it's just, yeah, I've always been a big ticket guy, or a big tent guy, I'd say. And, I have a lot of friends that are on the, maybe center right, et cetera. I even have some Bernie guys that are my buddies, but, they believe in fiscal stuff, but it's just a strange friendship. But, it's sad, because, like I said, if I can't keep hammering this point home anymore, it's just, until you remove that influence and, really those special interests, you can't really have a big tent, because your guy, it doesn't matter who it is, they're going to get bought out one way or another, or get forced into voting a certain way they don't want to, because something will come out about them, and some special interest group might have dark stuff on them, whatever it may be. But it's just it's sad until it happens. I don't really foresee kind of a big tent happening with the GOP.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the battle is just, and this, speaks to the Freedom Foundation too, is just kind of combating that micro lobby that can sort of happen as the places that are, like you said, just kind of the breaks in the chain as far as their sweeping takeover kind of goes. If they need somebody to go a certain way, flood them with money in this small area or these smaller counties.
So
So,
what we call it over here is we call it renting Republican. So kind
mm,
of what they've done, they actually did it with my state senator, or former state senator now. So it was a state senate race. I think they spent, I think it was $3 million, which is usually a congressional campaign, or if not more, for state senate race. But we're a full-time legislature. I think you guys are part-time, I believe. But so our guys have a lot more money to gain, a lot more staff to gain, et cetera. You have a lot more power once you win. But so what they did is the teachers union would basically, like we say, renting Republicans, the teachers union would give him, $5,000-$10,000 checks, et cetera. So he would vote with them, and so same with the gun lobby group, he would vote with them certain ways as well. And then on the back end, they used some dark money groups, and they were flooding his opponent with six-figure checks. So by the time November rolled around, he lost his base because we're like, what the hell? Why are you voting this way? So he lost those votes, and then on the back end, he got out messaged and outspent because they just want their puppet in there instead of him, and is trying to work with him. So the Democrat won, I think, by 10 or so points, and that's the end of that. So now we have a liberal state senator for the next 4 years in our area. And it's sad because, I mean, especially in our county where I live in Chester County, we were considered the bedrock of the Republican Party for the entire state of Pennsylvania. So and that flipped as of 4 years ago. And once our county flipped, and actually our former state chairman of the GOP was from this area. So it's a lot of people are looking at it like, well, what are we going to do with especially Pennsylvania, because we're a huge battleground state and a purple state. So kind of on the other side is a lot of our county parties on the west or southwest area, so around Pittsburgh, have been turning, and we've seen that even with like our side with the Freedom Foundation, is a lot of union people and rank and file are getting out because they're rank and file, they're a lot more even if they're not huge Trump people. I mean, they're all huge Republicans, huge conservatives, and they're sick and tired of seeing their union dues go to this nonsense, supporting our liberal governor, supporting Joe Biden and our liberal attorney general and whatnot, and kind of down the line. So southwest of the area, southwest of the region of our Commonwealth, it's pretty crazy what's happening. It's turning pretty red. So what we'll see, and we actually saw the outcome of that this past election, even though Trump apparently lost. I mean, that's up for debate, but Trump apparently lost in 2020 for our state. But what also happened was we had two statewide candidates win, which we haven't held, I think, in like 40 or 50 years. It was our state treasurer and our state auditor general. So, I mean, it's just nuts because of that region going so red, and so much grassroots going into that area, because people are really like yearning, and that's kind of old coal country, because that's closer to West Virginia where Pittsburgh is. So I mean, that's a lot of stalwart conservatives, really pro-life values, in that region. So they were really by themselves, they pretty much all set Philadelphia. So it's just basically the rest of the state you were looking at, which the majority of it's red. We have 67 counties. I'd say probably at least 61 of them are red. So I mean, if you can get the Southwest region, which pretty much the Republicans have now, and it's just growing and growing and growing because it's a better way of life out there rather than Philadelphia and the liberal cesspool that's happening there. So that's kind of how it is. And again, it's going to those events, having those tough conversations with areas you don't think you'll win, and surprisingly you will. I mean, we have a pretty big Hispanic population where I live currently, and I would knock doors when I ran, and surprisingly they'd be like, are you pro-life? And I'll be like, yeah, but I mean, that has nothing to do with like a local race that I'm running. I'm not in Congress or anything. And they said, we don't care, we'll vote for you. And it's just like, you have a lot of those single issue voters too, that you'll surprisingly, whether it's guns, whether it's pro-life, whatever it may be, if you can just get that little tick in them, they'll vote your way every time.
Yeah, I think that's been the story, obviously, with like the evangelical vote, in the United States until of late, and different things like that that are, those single issue things that, don't seem to have as much hold, but they seem like they should. And I think a lot of people just in general are afraid to speak out in a lot of ways. And I think that's a huge thing in Oregon too. It's such a ostracizing characteristic to be, any kind of, conservative and stuff like that. It's just, in your general day to day. That's kind of, I think, one of the contrasts, I think, probably from here to there is that just going out and to Whole Foods, or kids going to school that, may have, religious parents or whatever it may be. It's just kind of that looming feeling of, I don't belong kind of thing.
Right.
So,
it is tough. I mean, the thing about it is, like, I forget who said it, but it was basically like 90% of success is showing up. And that's the biggest thing. It's like you have, especially in this past generation, you have a little more laziness, and, really, if honestly just show up, people like that human interaction. People want to be able to connect with you regardless of, whatever it may be. And people have a yearning for a connection. So, I mean, that's literally how I looked at it. And that's why, we had committee people show up or elected officials show up, and, we would, one thing we did particularly is we sponsored a softball league in our in the city of Lancaster. Again, it's a very liberal area, and one of our people on our executive committee, she was our assistant treasurer. I believe it was her husband or so. He's Latino, and they were in this Roberto Clemente, softball league, and, every year we sponsored it, and everyone's like, why the hell are the Republicans here? But the Democrats weren't there because they didn't think of that. So every time you had the softball league, and we sponsored, jerseys, and we had it on our and again, it's also, image and stuff. It's like you keep seeing our logo and you keep seeing the elephant. And so what we did is we sponsored, basically the league, and we had a big banner out in center field. Our, emblem would be on the trophy, and it's just little things like that that just keep the heads turning. And it's not going to be overnight, and a lot of people want instant gratification and want that instant, win, and whether it's November, whatever it may be, it's not going to happen like that. It's going to be a couple cycles. You're going to have to, bite your teeth and just, keep holding your ground. But that's what we did. And, over time it will work. It's, Lancaster City still hasn't turned yet. I mean, we're always hopeful for it, but I mean, you have to keep showing up. You're not just going to do it, a year or two and, give up. It's just not worth it. So you're going to have to invest the time. You're going to invest your money. You're going to have to take time away from your family and whoever else. So it sucks, but I mean, it's about the mission. It's about the end goal. So it's all long-term, because I mean, that's what the Democrats did, and they don't stop, and they always out-message Republicans tenfold. So, and that's always been, GOP's biggest crux is messaging and marketing, and it's never going to go away. They just out-message us. They have more, younger, I guess, hipster ways of doing it. I don't know, but our message of, limited government, low taxes, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, all that good stuff, it's just, it resonates with more people than not. And I think just, staying true and just keep grinding and grinding. It's a lot more simpler than it sounds, but it's just, that's what it is. You just got to show up.
Yeah. And just to kind of touch on that point too, sort of reiterate, I think so much of what makes the left successful is, and maybe you'll agree with this, is that is things that people don't have to show up to be a part of. Social media, television, any kind of cultural stuff that, can just be a one-way message, one way down the channel. Whereas like a personal interaction with somebody, I mean, it's a lot. There's people that'll kind of, share their political views, F Trump, this, that on social media. When you actually stand there and have a conversation with them, that channel is two ways, and it
right.
A lot of times, for at least in my experience, and maybe you've had this as well, when trying to kind of sway somebody, that personal connection in a lot of ways is, I think, something that conservatism and the GOP still has. It's, it's like the trustworthy adult kind of, breaking stuff down to you a little bit. Whereas the parent that will let you watch the rated R movies that kind of represents the left is kind of, fun, but maybe not so trustworthy, right, and somebody that you can actually bear all to in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's fantastic. I think that's there's a lot in there that definitely transfers over that can be very
Yeah, I mean,
objective
it's
kind
just
of stuff
like
for us.
it's like think of. I mean, I know you guys are the statewide R's. I mean, think of different localities where you guys are, lagging behind. Obviously, Portland's an extreme city, but I mean,
Mhm.
even start smaller, like maybe a rural area or some
Mhm.
other town that you didn't think of that kind of went left. The last couple cycles. It's like think of and maybe talk if you know some people there and think of different events you could do, or if they have a beer fest, or if they have just bigger events like down in the city, like the softball league. That was huge down there, so that's what we did, especially
Yeah.
with trying to get the Hispanic votes and kind of get more of that pro-life messaging down to them. And it's just little things like that that really stick with people. And again, like the imaging, if you guys are sponsoring that and you guys have your like YRO emblem somewhere, it's just that constant reminder in your head to keep people spinning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of showing up, is not just the knocking on doors, but making your presence felt just in visuals, I'd love to have a billboard in every county.
Right. And that's the thing, like even some like city events we
Sure.
or like more urban events we would go to, and
Mhm.
you have some white people just show up and they stand out like a sore thumb, and people are looking at you like, why are you here? It's like, oh, we care about you guys. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
we're your neighbors. Like, we're not different or anything. Like, we're not Nazis or anything crazy
Right.
like they try and make us out to be.
Right.
And they were like, all right, respect. Like, we dig it. So, but it's just like that constant, reminder, like, oh, they're the Republicans. Oh, good, they're here. And so it's just kind of getting that friendlier look, the friendlier taste in their mouth that like, all right, these guys aren't bad. Whatever the Democrats are saying, like they're actually decent people. They're
Right.
human beings. And
Right.
it's like,
Right.
exactly. We just want the best for the community.
Totally. People respect the moxie, if nothing else, out here in Portland, to go out and kind of, represent yourself in that way. But those types of outreach. I mean, we got darn close to a recall here. I think in 2018. Sub 3,000 votes or something like that. So it's like it's definitely out there. You know what I mean? And people will show up when it's it's a very fine line, but it's definitely the people are there in a lot of ways. So yeah, fantastic. We're just a little bit over my time here. I'm going to go ahead, and we do have some audience questions here in the chat. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Kurt here. And just lastly, for me, I want to say thanks so much for taking the time to talk, and
Yeah,
I'll turn it over
absolutely.
to Kurt.
All right, yeah, I echo Tyler's sentiment, and I am holding my phone here and going back to the chat, so excuse it if it's shaky or whatnot. Um, so I do have a few questions. I mean, I could touch on a lot of stuff, but um, pertaining to applications of um, your 90% win rate you were talking about, is there a formula to that? Is it specific to, because I mean obviously Pennsylvania is more of a toss-up state than say Oregon, so is there a method to the madness that is, or like I said, like a formula, or like you said, is it sort of telling people about values and then getting out of the way?
So it's kind of a little both. I mean, granted, being the ED, you took some victories. I always hated being that guy, but I mean, I like to put a face to stuff. But and like myself and our chairman always, they always looked at the party taking the W. But I mean, it's the people, it's the committee people that are elected by their neighbors. It's finding those good people that are actually going to go out there and knock doors. And like I said, I'm the committee person for my area, and I do my job, I do my part. But it's just finding those people, because there are a lot of people that want to be on the committee that just want to be it just to say it, or they want to show up to some convention or whatever and just have their little name tag with their lanyard, and they see them once a year, but they're not at the polls for 15-16 hours. They're not talking to their neighbors. They're not trying to go out in the community, and people are like, oh, there's a committee guy, like, oh, I know John. Oh, okay, cool. And it's just like little things like that. So it's just trying to identify them. And we did a really good job, and we had really good people on our committee that went out there and actually did the work and walked the walk. So I mean, that was kind of the nitty gritty of it. Is and like every election day I would go around with our chairman and go to different polling places that were more of the hot button issues that because that's what we could do, because we know we had at the time, I want to say in our county, we had 240 precincts. And honestly, we just had to visit maybe like, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 that we thought were toss-ups, because we knew everywhere else would be covered. And even if those places didn't have like a committee person, like the next little precinct over, they knew somebody that could cover that area. So it's like, you have to, that's the hardest part, is trying to find those good people that will actually do that. But again, it's a lot of people just like to sit on their butt and not do anything and just say they did it. And, someone else does the work and they're like, oh yeah, we did that. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, we know what you did. So
yeah, a lot of people just there for the t-shirt.
Correct. So that's the hardest part. But once you find those gems, it's golden. It's golden. But again, like, you also have to, I mean, we had one of our, a really good volunteer that always showed up to everything, always put together thousands of signs for us. But again, you'd also have to take care of them on the back end. So we would always, help her out, give her free tickets and her mom to dinners and, the big extravagant dinners we'd have every year and the luncheons and things like that. So, I mean, you have to reward, that behavior also. You can't just kind of neglect it. So, it's kind of a give and take relationship, but again, it's trying to first pinpoint those people and, really prop them up and give them every resource necessary to, really do their job well. Cause I mean, there's some counties where, you have really good people, but, the county party may be lacking pretty hard and, they don't have the resources. If, you call them up and they're like, all right, well, we can't get you your yard signs or your literature or whatever it may be. So, I mean, that's why, like, we always answer our phones nonstop, and we always had our door open for whoever committee person needed to come in there, or, area leader or precinct captain, whatever, however we broke it up that year. But that's just the thing, is trying to find them. And then once you do, ride or die with them as long as they possibly can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing that's unique, I mean, sort of here in Oregon, is again, that we have much more of a partisan divide. So it's we're sort of in a 22, right? Where you were talking about being an executive director and you're sort of, that's your career. That's what you do on a day-to-day basis, right? That's your 9 to 5
right.
type position. Is in Oregon, like you said, everything's funded by the public unions, the SEIU, and those folks. And they have people that are explicitly talking to Congress, or, to state senators and reps. The GOP doesn't have that. We don't, like, everyone in the GOP sort of grassroots is a volunteer. We don't have really an executive director. We're actually hiring one now, but he will be like the one person in the state. And so
how many counties do you guys have?
36.
Okay.
Yeah, and you actually talked about, the conservative cities that sort of went liberal and sort of attacked those cities. Just to give you, we talked before the recording started about the gerrymandering. To give you an example of what's happening, about 6/10 of Oregon is one conservative district. So we have 6 now. One conservative, the one red one is basically it's like the eastern half, and then like a little bit kind of down south into the west, but everything else is like made to be a blue district. And so we have this big stronghold in the east where there's, a bunch of farms and not as many people. But then these other districts that obviously are made to be blue. So by not having, obviously Oregon, everyone sees the headlines, we're as blue as can be. But really, it's like 55 Dems, 45 Republicans. It's just gerrymandered to be that way. So we don't have money coming in, right?
How are your counties, like, out of your sorry, you said 36, right?
Yeah.
So out of 36 counties, how many are, considered Republican? How many are considered Democrat?
That's a good question. Stephen, do you have a?
Well, once again, it breaks down into that rural urban divide. Basically, any place where there's a city, and then some of our coastal areas. I'm going to say we're looking at maybe 18 to 20 that are solidly Democratic, or Democrat controlled. I mean, yeah, it's not a really great outlook. But the fact is that 3 of the counties control 63% of the population in the state.
Right.
That's what it is.
So what I mean, everyone's got an opinion, but what I would do is just kind of what the Democrats have done, especially here in Pennsylvania. And we used to do it, and then we kind of got lackadaisical because we won so much, and then we had a lot of infighting, and then the Democrats swooped in. Start local. Start at your trying to identify. Like I know governor, I know Congress races, and I know Alex running out there too, and I know those can be really sexy and appealing, and you have your big names come in for dinner or whatever it may be, but it's the little things that count. And if you don't start local, because that's what we're trying to claw back our power that we had, especially here in this county. And I'm helping out with some races here, but if you don't have that local stronghold, it doesn't matter if you have your state rep or whatever it may be. Because I mean, like I said, my state, like I'm in a blue area, but we have a Republican state rep, and he just got bought out by the teachers union. So it doesn't matter if you have that top guy. You need that base support. You need that local support first. So that would be, again, this is a long game. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. A lot of people aren't willing to do it, but that would be my advice. Definitely start local at your county, whether I don't know if you guys, certain row offices you guys have out there, like a clerk of courts or things like that. But start with those county, and local offices first, and really kind of hone in on that. I know it's not sexy. I know it's not ideal, but that's how you start changing the mindsets. And that's how you start changing, votes. So over time, it's going to be, 3-4 cycles till you really feel your effects. But I mean, if that's where you guys kind of, want to go, that would be my advice, because that's what we're trying to do here. And we're trying to win back our local and our county offices now, in the areas we lost, and try and claw it back. But again, the damage is already done. So now we're just trying to put together, better messaging, better marketing, hitting more doors, kind of just doing the nitty gritty stuff. But that's where it's going to be, and that's where you're going to change and finally affect. I know you had those 3 counties that really affect the whole population, but I mean, if you really have those 36 counties, if you have 31 that are red, that's going to cause some problems, and that's going to really infiltrate a lot of opinions, because I know some of those people probably work in the cities or whatever it may be. So then you have opposing opinions coming in the cities for different things, and so it's going to create more friction. But again, through friction, you're gonna start changing minds. So that would be my advice. I take it or leave it, but that would probably be the best course of action, even though it's more of a long-term goal.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, I think Oregon actually has done that quite well this last cycle where we were doing school board races. We have very, very local parents, and for me, I think messaging in Oregon is so easy, because you probably see what's happening with our homeless in Portland, with the corruption of the governor. And so the governor in 2022, she's going to be term limited. So we have a fresh new start as far as the governor goes. And that race isn't gerrymandered. It's everyone in the state. And Oregon was the last state in the country to officially open up. And there's just so much that I think can be easily said. Be like, do you want to continue down this road, or do you want to change? And I think, again, just telling, I think that's a value. Like you were talking about. Do you want the governor to tell you how to live your life? And if not, then okay, let's try to change. Because if you keep voting the same way, it's not going to be good.
Right.
So yeah, I think we have done that with the school board races, especially here in the Washington County, which is west of Portland. I think we've done a good job with school board races, and at least causing some ruckus anyway. So
that's another thing. So like most of my family still lives down in Maryland, and what they did there was They had a guy named Larry Hogan. He's more center, I guess. A lot of people think he's a rhino and be a Democrat anywhere else, but he's a Republican. So, but again, he won. He actually won re-election, and in a liberal state like Maryland, just like Oregon. But the party got really behind him. The young Republicans got behind him. And what he's also done is gone out to local municipalities and counties and helped those guys campaign. So it also gives them a higher, name ID, higher notoriety, et cetera. And it gets the press there because the governor's there. So, I mean, that's another kind of way to kind of go on the back end. But again, like you guys are gonna have to keep showing up and, really, really hammer down those local and county races, because that's where you win. That's where you win your base.
Right. And, I don't want to overstay our welcome. I know it's pretty late on the East Coast.
It's all good, man.
So I guess, yeah, I mean, I guess a question I sort of asked, but I'm not sure I sort of took it in a different direction. Because we're sort of an all volunteer base and everyone from the outside sees Oregon as so blue, I think some people are reticent to send money to such a blue state. It's like, well, I'm throwing away money. And again, we don't have full-time people. I mean, Freedom Foundation's doing a great job with people like Dimitri, and he's incredible. But and by the way, I will tell you, every event I've been to, or every time I hear Dimitri's talk, he tells people to leave Union. So he's doing good work. So I guess how do we fill that gap with, we can't get funding because we don't have, we're not considered even leaning Democrat, but we can't. A lot of people, we can't get out there and into the grassroots sometimes unless we have the money. So it's sort of a catch-22.
Yeah, that's a good question. Trying to think on that. So, I mean, one is, obviously it's a shameless plug, is obviously Freedom Foundation can help with that angle. Because, we pay people, we pay canvassers to help knock doors and so forth. And obviously our end goal is to completely level the playing field, because the Democrats already have a leg up on union money. So, that's what I tell people too. And we've had a lot of, especially over here on the East Coast, we've had a lot of people not leave, but stop giving to the GOP because they can't really, have an ROI or kind of really see their investment. Just like you said, I've talked to guys in Jersey and Delaware and Maryland. It's like, I give these guys all this money. I give the NRCC, I give the NRSC, I give, these certain people like, Dan Crenshaw or whoever it may be, like these really guys that, the media props up or Fox props up. And it's like, I don't see like where my money's going. And it's like, you're not going to. So a lot of it may go to, miscellaneous crap. You don't know. But so that's another thing that's kind of hard to compete with in this day and age. It's like having an all volunteer and not being able to pay people. But again, that's the thing. It's like if your state party was stronger, I know from hearing from you guys, it doesn't seem like it's too strong just because they're hiring their first staffer. So that's kind of how that relationship here in Pennsylvania, like we had during my time, we had a pretty strong state party. But we worked in coordination with each other, even though we were technically independent, and I made it that way. And we fundraised a bunch to basically have our own communications and everything like that. And we had our own, whole network and, infrastructure basically to be like, we don't really need any help. We can do it alone. But we were in a very, very unique situation because we were so influential. But a lot of counties relied on the state party to, whether not necessarily to provide that funding, but basically to provide those resources and leeways where they could, go to events and, network with people or, if they really needed to, state party could, cut them a check. But it just doesn't seem, from hearing from you guys, that they don't have those capabilities. So that's a problem. Because you need a strong, top leadership to really kind of trickle down to, your local and county parties. Do you have a strong chairman in the state?
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I mean, yeah. So Dallas Hurd is a state senator and the head of the ORP, Oregon Republican Party, and
Okay.
he's changing things a lot, and it's getting better. And so we sort of have direction now. We actually just finished creating sort of a database, like data heavy information, so we can target better. And so, and Dallas, the last I heard from him a couple weeks ago, he said something to the effect of that the ORP before just wasn't even asking for money. Like it was just taking whatever people would give them. And that they have more than doubled, I think, their income now because,
Okay.
and thus they're able to hire someone. So, it's going in a better direction, and we have that to hope for. And again, not that every volunteer needs to be paid, but honestly, a lot of people have come to us and said, "Hey, how do I help with voter integrity? Because 2020 was a complete joke." And that and what's going on in Portland, what's going on in Salem, our capital, a lot of people are like, "Whoa, like we got to wake up." So I think the anger and the volunteer willingness is there. So yeah, I think it's now a matter of getting them out.
Would he? I don't know if is he brand new, or has he been on there long?
I think he's like 35, maybe. He's pretty young.
No, I'm sorry. Did like his term? Did he just start, or?
Oh, I think he was a state rep even for a couple of years.
Yeah, he's already done one term, and he's ending this term here pretty quick. But I think he's up for election in the next cycle.
So okay. I mean, do you talk to him much, Steven? I mean, does he help
pretty consistently?
You guys, okay?
Yeah, pretty consistently.
Good. That's good that you guys have the open line of communication. Yeah, I mean that's key. That's crucial. But yeah, I mean definitely because I mean the state party always trying to prop up the young Republicans too at big events as well, and that helped with donors and trying to help the younger generation, because without the younger generation there's going to be no party. So I mean that's one of the things our state party did when I was there, was they really propped them up at dinners and different events, and always trying to have like at least one young Republican at, like, whether it's a luncheon or whatever maybe, and always did like a shameless ploy about the YRs. That always really helped them. But I don't know if he does that yet.
Yeah, okay. He does. He's really, really good about promoting us. But vice versa, we do a pretty dang good job showing up and representing what Republicans can be in the state of Oregon.
Okay, right on.
Well, hey, Hunter.
Go ahead. Sorry. Do you guys do any marketing and all that stuff to
we need to do much better. Donations? We need to do much better, but with more donations, we've our budget has it in there, but we have to gotta get some more money coming in.
Yeah, because I mean all that social media stuff, it's actually pretty cheap to do that. Yeah. And that, I mean, I did that even for my own race, and I got a pretty good bunch of money, even though it was for a local race. Mm-hmm. But yeah, definitely keep on that. That's huge.
Great. Well, hey, Hunter, you've been more than gracious with your time, and we really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with us for a little bit. And yeah, go get some sleep.
It's all good, man. No, thank you guys. I really appreciate the time and appreciate the invite. But yeah, I mean, if you don't have my email or my information, I know Dimitri and Aubrey going to have it. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any other questions. I'm always happy to help in many ways I can, even though I'm on the other side of the country.